Greetings, fellow Gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
I'm Count Jackula.
And he's Count Jackula, and we just watched Alien Romulus.
Not Alien Remus.
Not Alien Remus, Alien Romulus, which is the latest entry in the Alien franchise, directed by Fede Álvarez of Evil Dead 2013 and Don't Breathe fame. So this movie follows two siblings, Rain and Andy, who live on a Weyland-Yutani mining colony. However, they can't leave the colony until they reach a certain amount of hours worked for the company. And when it turns out that they expand the amount of hours that Rain has to work, she has to find a new way to get off of the colony and to escape to a brand new world, so to speak, in which she is more free.
Yeah,
she's essentially trying to escape corporate slavery.
Yeah, because they make it very clear. It's just sort of like, this is just what they do. It's like, major hours? Oh, we just doubled them.
Yep, 100%.
Just doubled them.
She teams up with a couple friends of hers who hatch a scheme. They are going to break into an abandoned Weyland-Yutani facility, steal some cryo chambers, and use those cryo chambers to get to a nearby colony that's like 9 years away. In terms of like space flight. And unfortunately for them, this facility has a secret. And I bet you can guess what that secret is. There are xenomorphs inside. There are aliens. And they must fight to survive in order to not only escape the facility, but also escape the clutches of Weyland-Yutani and get their new life. There's kind of like a parallel here between like these characters and like refugees trying to escape like an evil overlord.
Yeah.
So to speak, but not from the perspective of them landing in the new country, but them trying to escape the old country. And I also dug that this movie went back to the basics of being about like employees versus Weyland-Yutani.
Yeah.
As opposed to the more spiritual thing that later Alien sequels would try to do.
Yeah.
Alien 3 and the prequels are probably the best examples of that. Alien 3 kind of has this whole like we're in purgatory thing, awaiting hell, and then at the end she falls into hell, you know.
Yeah.
Prometheus, which is like, okay, what if you met God? Well, okay, we're meeting God. And then you had Covenant, which was like, okay, now we're meeting the devil and the fall of paradise. It was nice to go back to the basics of workers versus shitty company with monsters.
Yes.
There's also a lot of throwbacks throughout this movie to the Alien franchise. In fact, I would argue sometimes there's too many throwbacks to the original Alien franchise.
In particular, there's one moment where you're like, you didn't need to do this.
Everything I was pretty much okay with, even a controversial aspect that we'll get to in the spoiler section. Here's the moment that's kind of from Alien 3. Here's the moment from Alien Resurrection. Here's the moment from Aliens.
Yeah, it even references Prometheus.
It does. And it ties Prometheus into the other Alien plots in a way that I didn't expect it to.
No, me
which
neither.
is kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, it actually did a better job than I think either of the prequels did at doing that.
Yes.
But there was one line where I feel like they just went a little too far with the throwbacking, and I'm just like, that line makes way less sense in the context of this movie than it did in the movie it was originally uttered in. So, okay, this is where you've crossed the line for me, movie. Cross the line with the line. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie.
What's the best of the post-Aliens sequels?
100%. I would actually agree.
It's a very comfortable third best.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I like this better than Alien 3. I like this better than Resurrection. I like this better than the two prequels. And I certainly like this better than the AVP films.
Oh, God.
This movie is legit good. It's kind of doing its own thing, but it fits neatly within the Alien continuity.
Yeah, because it actually is clearly in continuity with the first two movies.
Yeah, it's 100%, but it's like weirdly, it's like a midquel, because it like takes place between Alien and Aliens, but because it's about completely separate characters, it doesn't really like matter that much.
Right.
The only thing that matters is that you find out at the beginning of the movie where they got the alien they used to spawn all these other aliens, which is basically the remains of the Nostromo from the first movie. The other thing that this movie does is it adds a couple new things to the Alien franchise. I don't think we've ever had a movie where we've had to see a group of characters try to deal with a horde of facehuggers before. That's not
that's
really
a little new. You usually only have like one.
Yeah, you have the scene in Aliens where they're like fighting off one in that lab, right?
Yeah.
But in this movie, it's like a horde of them in a similar scenario, but like they add some new information to it that makes it a little bit different. In fact, what they do with it reminded me a lot of Don't Breathe. Don't Breathe's DNA is all over this movie as much as the Alien franchise is.
Yeah.
right down to the theming. Like, both movies are about characters trying to break into some place in order to get out of the town they live in, so to speak. One's just a colony, and one's a literal town.
Yeah.
And they both also have, like, a sibling who's taking care of another sibling, and one that can't take care of themselves. Like, there's some theming there. And also, both movies feature a ton of pregnancy trauma.
Yes.
Now, granted, that pregnancy trauma also it inherited from the Alien franchise, but it's also something that was in Don't Breathe, so it's kind of in Fede's DNA too as a filmmaker.
Yeah, you could very easily take Don't Breathe, replace fucking Stephen Long.
Or Stephen Lang.
Sorry, Stephen Lang with like the Alien Queen, and it's essentially the same movie.
Or the dog with some face huggers.
Yes, yeah.
100%. It's like, this is 100% a Fede Álvarez film, even though there's a ton of scenes that are directly homaging previous movies. Another thing they added to this franchise that I have never seen in any of the other Alien movies, the zero gravity sequence.
Yes.
Where she shoots all the fucking xenomorphs that are down the hall, but then gravity is let go, and because there's no gravity, it's just all this floating acid blood.
Yeah.
And she has to float in between the acid blood to get to the other side to escape. That is something that none of these Alien movies have done, and that was a really cool sequence. And that's really like the moments where I feel like this movie excels, is those little moments of tension that are like playing on the tropes of the franchise, but doing something new with it.
What also did the thing where the alien blood actually eats through the hull of ship.
Oh yeah, 100%. Which becomes a problem throughout the movie. There is a point where it like literally just blows a hole through the fucking ship, and they have to fucking get to safety. The other thing I really dug about this movie is that it's kind of back to the basics on the filmmaking front too. Much like any modern day film, there is a lot of CGI in this movie, but this movie obviously took great pains to bring a lot more like alien puppetry back.
Yeah.
From like the first two movies especially. And in the Alien like prequels, for example, they're like almost entirely CGI creatures. I think sometimes they had a puppet, but then they CGI'd over the puppet, kind of like they did with the Thing movie.
Yeah.
The Thing prequel movie. But in this movie, they keep as much of the puppetry as possible. So like stylistically, this feels like it belongs right after the second movie.
Yeah. This one goes a little bit into the lore of the rest of the world, but not too much.
That is one thing I liked about the movie, though, is that we rarely see like life outside of the spaceships.
Yeah, and then this one we start on a planet.
Yeah.
We start on a planet.
It's a colony that looks like a cross between... Actually, you know what it looks like? Trigun.
Yes.
It looks like a Trigun fucking colony.
It did look like Trigun. You know, everything is busted, and I was kind of happy because I was like, yeah, space is a lot cooler when it sucks.
And the funny thing is, that opening of them on the mining colony gave this more of a cyberpunk feel than any of the other movies, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, Alien Romulus is a fun romp. I highly recommend you go check it out in theaters, especially if you're a fan of the first two Alien movies. This movie, it's going to wet your whistle in a way that none of the sequels have so far, at least in this specific way. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, it is currently available in theaters. Go check it out for yourself. And with that said, let us move on to the spoilers.
One of the big spoilers that I like lost my shit over.
Yeah.
Was, okay, so it's an alien movie. So android's going to show up.
Yes.
There's going to be an android.
Yes.
At least one.
And there's two in this movie.
There are two androids. It turns out that Andy...
Yes.
Yeah, Andy, he is an android that is busted.
And he hasn't been repaired because Rain simply does not have the money to repair him.
She doesn't have the money to repair him, and even if she did, they would probably just like, chuck him in the fucking furnace and give her a new model.
There's also that worry that he would just be adopted by the company and put back to work because he's technically Weyland-Yutani
he's property.
He's technically Weyland-Yutani property. But before we get to that, the other android. They get into a lab and there is this android that's just been fucked. And so they semi-repair him. And when they bring him online, you realize it's an Ash.
Yeah. It's the same model android from the first movie.
Now, to be clear, it's not Ash from the first movie. It's the same model. The character in this movie's name is Rook, but they have CGI'd the face to look like Ian Holm from the original Alien movie. It's basically digital necromancy.
Yeah.
You've brought an actor back from the dead, and there's a lot of ethical questions tied into that. Now, to be clear with this movie, they actually got permission from his wife to include him in the movie. And they actually did hire a voice actor to perform the part and then digitally adjusted it to make it sound more like Ash.
Yeah, they did a really good job.
So there was no actor who was out of a job for this scene, and they got permission to use the likeness of the actor they did use. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're gonna do this, this was the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Could they have just gotten like a lookalike, or could they have gotten a different actor, like say one of the other androids from one of the other movies and did this? Sure. They could have, but it's very obvious they wanted to harken back to Ash specifically with the way this character's portrayed.
Yeah.
So I kind of understood why it was Ash.
Yeah, because you have that immediate reaction of, oh God, you can't trust this thing.
Yeah. They also have like an interesting parallel between his character and the character of Andy. Andy, he starts off as a good character that becomes bad because they put this chip in him.
Yeah, because they have to take this, I forget, like the ID chip, basically the SIM card.
Yeah, they took it from another android that was also broken, and they put it in him because they couldn't open any of the doors in the space station that they're stealing the cryo chamber from. Yeah, and because he's a Weyland-Yutani bot, if they put the chip in him from one of the other Weyland-Yutani bots, he will have the security clearance. But unfortunately, the chip also puts Weyland-Yutani's like protocols in.
Yeah, puts the directives in.
So all of a sudden, instead of the original programming of protecting his sister, he now has to do what's for the good of the company.
Yeah.
So this is where the movie kind of reinforces its theme of characters trying to get out from under corporate slavery. He's literally re-enslaved by this chip, and they have to break him out of that by the end of the movie. And he's constantly guiding them throughout the movie to places they probably don't want to be in the ship, because at the end of the day, his job is to make sure that the black serum they find, which is the black serum from Prometheus, that Weyland-Yutani wants so they can create better humans out of it, that serum gets back to Weyland-Yutani.
Yeah.
That becomes his goal. And so everything he makes all the other characters do throughout the movie is to achieve that goal. But unlike other Alien movies where that's like the twist, you kind of know that he's working for Weyland-Yutani from the get-go once the chip is put in him.
Yeah.
And they have to find a way to fix him by the end of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a twist on an old formula there.
Yeah, because they're also forced to follow him.
Yes.
Like, they really don't have much choice.
Because they have no idea how to deal with these xenomorphs and shit, right? Like, they don't even know about the acid blood until that happens, right? You know? Ooh. And speaking of the acid blood, they added some stuff that I don't remember being in the previous movies, where the way the face huggers go after you is they're essentially like, they're sensing the heat in your body.
Yeah.
So they crank up the heat in this one scene, and they have to walk through this room of face huggers trying desperately to not raise their heart rates in any way that's gonna alert the fucking things around them. It reminded me a lot of some tense moments in Don't Breathe.
Don't Breathe, yeah.
Where they're trying to walk around the blind guy and try not to make a noise.
Well, yeah. It's exactly what they're doing here, you know?
Another thing that I don't remember being in any of the other movies, it may have been in the comics or something like that, is they have this interesting like in-between phase between the chest burster and the full-blown xenomorph, where it's like in this
chrysalis.
egg.
Yeah, they have a cocoon.
It's a cocoon with like a vagina mouth that the alien births from.
Yeah.
And that also leads to one of the cruelest deaths in the movie, when that one guy who has no idea about the acid blood accidentally like tries to kill the creature inside, only for all the blood to leak out and
fucking get on his chest and head, and it just like melts right through him.
You don't feel bad though, because that guy was one of the biggest assholes.
Yeah.
He's anti-androids. And here's the thing, the movie doesn't necessarily prove him wrong about that, but because he's a dick to this specific android who's a legitimately nice guy, we hate him.
Yeah.
The other like major spoiler in this movie, I think I already brought up the fact that they're planning to use the black goo to like change humans into more advanced humans, and that's the experiments they're doing on this ship. Over the course of the movie, a character gets injured who happens to be pregnant, and that character injects herself with the black goo, hoping that it would heal her wounds because she is severely injured by one of the xenomorphs.
Yeah.
Despite her friend insisting that she don't because the friend does not trust the company nor that goo. And you shouldn't.
Yeah.
If you've seen the prequels, you really shouldn't trust that goo. And she is put into a cryosleep, but then the cryosleep chamber malfunctions because there's an extra creature in the fucking tank with her. And it turns out to be this weird human-alien hybrid baby that she births.
Yeah.
If the alien-human hybrid in the previous movie was more alien-like in Resurrection, this one is more on the engineer side.
Yeah, it looks more like an engineer.
But with like alien aspects to its body, like holes in its back that are a little uncomfortable and like weird spiky tail. And shit. And so the finale of this movie is kind of like a better done version of the finale of Resurrection. Where it is the main character trying to survive this alien human hybrid, who is way creepier than the one from the previous movie.
One for Resurrection is pretty goofy looking.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair to that movie, you're supposed to feel more bad for that one than you are this one. This one,
this one's just a monster.
There are scenes with it that reminded me of like It Follows, if that makes sense. Like that scene in It Follows where the person's standing in the hallway.
Yeah, and it's coming through the door.
And then it like comes down the hallway in this really tall, lanky form. That's what this thing gave off the entire finale of this movie. Now, I will say this scene is probably a little too reminiscent of Resurrection, but it was so much better than the Resurrection scene that I was willing to forgive that.
Yeah, we promised we would talk about the moment the movie went too far.
This is my one moment in the movie where I'm like, okay, this is where the references have gone too far. I do not think this was necessary, and I actually feel like this takes a little bit away from the movie when it happens. So in the movie, there's a scene in which they're trying to crawl up an elevator shaft while aliens are chasing after them. Andy tries to save Rain, who's caught between an alien and a facehugger, by taking the gun that they have, the one gun that they have, and using the remaining bullets to fly down the chamber and shoot the alien, landing on top of the alien and shooting the alien in the face and blowing its head off. It's a really cool moment. But after he does this, he practically winks at the camera and goes, "Get away from her, you bitch."
Yeah.
It doesn't even feel like a thing Andy would say.
No, it doesn't.
And here's what annoys me about this. Throughout this movie, one of his interesting character traits is that in order to try to calm his sister down, he will often do really bad dad jokes.
Yeah.
Because yes, it'll make her groan, but at least she's no longer sad, you know? I feel like this scene would have played perfectly if after he shot the alien, he made a bad dad pun.
Yes.
Especially since part of the crux of this scene was that vibe of like Andy's back.
Yes.
He's no longer being controlled and he's no longer malfunctioning on the ground. He's now back and he's saving his sister. That would have been emotionally satisfying, and it would have made the entire crowd cheer. Where can they find you, Count Jackula?
Oh, you can find me on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where I stream at 7 p.m. I also stream on Twitch Tuesday and Thursday, also at 7 p.m. And what about you?
Y'all know me. I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook. Just look up the Horror Guru or Blood Splattered Cinema, and I'll be there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, but we will certainly accept more. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, if you made it this far, then I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag #Don'tSweat. Which is something the characters are trying not to do so that they don't lower their body temperature and alert the fucking creatures. Use Don't Sweat in a comment below. That way I know, that way Jack knows, that way the whole world knows that you are surrounded by face huggers and you're probably screwed. My apologies.